Our challenge is how do we learn from the mistakes of this kind of practice? The massive loss of short-term capital did not spark an increase in productive investment that developing countries needed if they were to finance structural transformation of their economies. Ironically, there is a global surplus of capital, while enterprises find it very difficult to raise finance. You could say the tide may seem to have risen everywhere, but there is not a drop of water to drink. Our view at UNCTAD is that the boom of the previous decade was not a natural or ordained response to getting the fundamentals right, nor was the crisis that followed the natural end to the decade's flow. The tidal metaphor is misleading because the movement of the tide are an immutable force of nature that you can do little about, whereas economic performance is determined by economic policy and the choices that we make, both nationally and internationally. The boom years were a product of a favorable external environment created by national and international economic policy, and the subsequent crisis was a systemic response to imbalances that resulted from the unbridled application of many of those same policies. Policy drove the remarkable turnaround of the Chinese economy in recent decades, bringing millions of people, hundreds of millions of people out of poverty on the basis of carefully sequenced, cautious liberalization combined with growth-oriented heterodox economic policies. China did not wait for any natural ebb and flow. Instead, its policies helped to create the conditions that were needed. A few months ago, at a retreat of the Chief Executive Board, I told the President of the World Bank and the Managing Director of IMF that I've had everybody congratulating themselves that the world has achieved the Millennium Development Goal number 1, halving extreme poverty. But the reality is that the Chinese Communist Party contributed more than the World Bank and IMF in the halving of extreme poverty in the world. That's a reality we don't like talking about, but it's a reality that's very instructive. There is a lot that can be done, and tools exist with which we can change the situation. Most importantly, developing countries, and particularly the emerging economies among them, need to change the strategic nature of the integration into the global economy. It's clear that the old routes to economic growth do not exist anymore. To take just one example, the potential for global trade that existed in previous decades is unlikely to be revived because sources of external demand may remain limited for some time to come. World economic growth was estimated to be around 2.4% in 2012, down from both 2011 and 2010. As advanced economies continue to suffer very slow recovery. Growth for the advanced economies was at an average 1.3%, around half of the pre-crisis level. Developing countries who previously relied on their position in global value chains, exporting to advanced economic markets, now seek value chains aimed at the emerging class of mass consumers in the developing world. Ideally, they might create their own new value chain. It's not only the fact that traditional markets in the advanced economies show slim signs of recovery in their former dynamism. The decoupling story has lost its appeal. According to our thinking and our recent estimates, GDP growth in India in 2013 is around 5%, less than half the level achieved in 2010. China's growth of 7.6% in 2013 is about 2% lower than 2 years earlier. Brazil, South Africa, the other large emerging markets are also feeling a drag on their growth. Now, one way to help achieve a virtuous cycle of expanding output and trade is to boost domestic and regional demand in the South. As historical export-led development strategies have become less viable, promoting